For years, the US dominated the world with the dollar. Trade only in dollars. Step out of line, they could freeze your money overnight. But in 2025, India is fighting back, stacking gold, cutting US debt, and joining the global push for de-dollarization, leading a quiet revolt against dollar tyranny. To understand why this matters, you have to see how the dollar became so powerful in the first place, and why countries like India are finally breaking free. After World War II, the US dollar became the backbone of the global financial system under the Bretton Woods Agreement. Every major currency was pegged to the dollar, and the dollar itself was pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. For decades, this arrangement created near-total trust in the dollar. It was literally as good as gold. But in 1971, the US unpegged the dollar from gold, effectively turning it into a fiat currency backed only by the promise of the US government. Despite this, the dollar's dominance persisted, cemented by oil trade agreements that forced global energy transactions to be priced in dollars, the so-called petrodollar system. This history explains why US treasuries were treated almost like sacred assets. They were liquid, dollar-denominated, and seen as the ultimate safe haven, until now. The year is 2025. Foreign central banks are cutting back on US treasuries, selling assets that were once treated as untouchable. According to the latest RBI and US Treasury numbers, India has quietly reduced its exposure to American government debt. By mid-2025, India's portfolio of US Treasuries stood at about $227 billion, roughly $15 billion less than the same time last year. It may sound like a small adjustment, but the fact that a country of India's size and importance is steadily trimming its exposure sends a powerful message. The old faith in dollar debt is no longer absolute. A mere $15 billion difference may look small, but the signal it sends is loud and clear. This is not panic selling. This is strategy. This is preparation. The wake-up call for many countries came in 2022, when the West froze nearly $300 billion of Russia's foreign reserves overnight. For emerging economies, this was a chilling moment. It proved that dollar assets are not just financial instruments. They are political tools. The same network that protects global capital can also be used to punish, isolate, or pressure countries during conflicts. This single event accelerated diversification strategies across Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. India, in which has faced its share of diplomatic pressure in the past, took notes. It is now quietly ensuring that a large chunk of its national wealth cannot be frozen by a foreign capital city's decision. For decades, U.S. debt was the foundation stone of India's forex reserves. Treasuries were seen as safe, predictable, and liquid. But today, that faith is not absolute. India's central bank is quietly diversifying, and its favorite hedge is gold. Between June 2024 and June 2025, India boosted its gold reserves by roughly 39 tons, pushing total holdings close to 880 tons, marking one of the biggest annual surges in decades. Gold is not a speculative bet. Gold is insurance. And when a central bank buys insurance, it means it is preparing for storms ahead. In just 2 years, the dollar has lost almost 40% of its buying power against gold. Some reports say it's crashing faster than anyone expected. They are not here to gamble. They are here to build lifeboats. Globally, central banks are hoarding gold at the fastest pace since the 1960s. China has added over 300 tons in 2 years. Turkey, Uzbekistan, and even Singapore have made record purchases. Gold is quietly becoming the neutral asset of the new financial order, one that no single country can print or weaponize. But there is another detail that reveals the scale of change. Central banks used to park proceeds in the Fed's overnight repo facilities. Now even those balances are thinning, signaling they're taking money out of the dollar system entirely. But now something different is happening. Those cash balances at the Fed are falling too. Central banks are not just reducing exposure, they are leaving the dollar system altogether. Where is the money going? Into gold, into other currencies, into sovereign wealth funds, into a new diversified financial world where the dollar is just one asset among many, not the unquestioned king. This financial shift is mirrored by a geopolitical one. At the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, Leaders openly called for reducing dollar dependence. Iran's president outlined a three-pillar blueprint. First, trade in national currencies. Let countries pay for oil, gas, wheat, and technology using their own money, not the dollar. Second, build a joint digital infrastructure. Use central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, to make payments faster, cheaper, and sanction-proof. And third, create a multilateral currency fund, a safety net that allows members to borrow in times of crisis without going to Washington or the IMF. The SCO even approved a new development bank to fund regional projects, bypassing traditional Western-led institutions. Wall Street sees this as a threat, and with good reason. If retail CBDC accounts become mainstream, citizens could hold money directly with their central banks, earning interest closer to the Fed's 4.33% policy rate instead of the paltry 0.2% that U.S. commercial banks currently offer. India is testing its own digital currency, the Digital Rupee, in several cities. This isn't just a test. It's a plan for a future where money can move across borders instantly, cheaply, and without relying on Western systems. By combining gold with a strong digital currency, India is shaping the next era of money. This could shake up the bank's monopoly on savings and give ordinary people a fairer deal. No wonder American lobbyists are fighting hard to stop it. The Tianjin Declaration, signed by SCO nations, went even further, declaring that the world was undergoing profound historical changes and that the future lay in a more just, equal, and representative multipolar order. This is not just poetry, it is a manifesto. It signals that countries from China to Russia to India are no longer willing to live in a system where a single currency, controlled by a single country, can decide the fate of billions. Western economists have begun sounding alarms. Reports from major U.S. think tanks describe this as a slow-motion challenge to dollar hegemony. Opinion pieces in the Financial Times and Wall Street Journal have warned that if countries like India, China, and Saudi Arabia keep trimming Treasury holdings, Washington may face higher borrowing costs and less leverage in global diplomacy. For India, this is not just finance, it is history. This moment carries deep emotional weight for India. In 1991, facing a balance of payments crisis, India had to pledge 67 tons of gold to the IMF and Bank of England to secure an emergency loan. It was a humiliating chapter in the nation's economic history. Fast forward to 2025, and the picture is completely different. India is not a borrower of last resort. It is a net buyer of gold, a lender to its neighbors, and a rising voice in global financial governance. This is not just diversification. This is redemption. It is India reclaiming the ability to decide its own destiny. A nation that once had its economy dictated by colonial powers will not allow its future to depend entirely on the policies of a foreign central bank. Another piece of the puzzle, U.S. debt is now over 120% of GDP, the highest level since World War II, and climbing. Ratings agencies have warned of long-term fiscal stress. Treasuries may still be risk-free in theory, but they are backed by a country running record deficits, fighting multiple overseas conflicts, and relying on foreign buyers to fund its debt. India's decision to trim holdings is not an anti-U.S. move. It is a recognition that concentration risk is real. This diversification is not hostility toward the United States. It is simply prudence. It is India saying, we will trade with you, we will partner with you, but we will not be vulnerable to you. India is not just surviving global turbulence, it is preparing to thrive in it. It is hedging its bets, protecting its people, and building a future where its economy is shielded from foreign storms. The question is no longer whether a multipolar world will come. It is already here. And when that world finally settles into its new balance, will India just adapt to it, or will it lead it?